Every day, 24,000 women are abused by someone they love. Just one phone call can help put a stop to it.
Rise from the ashes. Everywhere we go, our light be flashing. 'Cause you're alive, yes, you're alive. You can rise, as you dancing off the ashes. Rise from the ashes. So everywhere we go, our light be flashing. 'Cause you're alive, yes, you're alive. You can rise, as you dancing off the.
Hi, I'm Sandy Powell from the Round Table. Welcome to the show. This month, the month of October, is what they recognize as the month of domestic violence awareness. And so I thought it'd be befitting to be one that would highlight domestic violence and the harm that it brings. One that was also in that same situation, I just think it's just important that we put out the information as often as we can about domestic violence and why the awareness of it sometimes provides prevention and opportunity for people to get out of situations that they're in by making it known, options and or how it looks. Because sometimes you're in these situations, you don't even know how it looks. You don't even know that you are in a domestic violence situation. And so these type shows and this type of awareness does that. It gives people knowledge and understanding and hopefully impart some wisdom on how to move from these situations or recognize these situations and help yourself or help someone. So that's our movement for the month of October. And my first show today is with my very good partner, friend, pastor, husband, bestie, Reverend Prathan Powell. Thank you for being here once again.
Thank you for the honor to come and be a part of it.
I appreciate it. And I know that we have so many angles that we can come from when we talk about domestic violence.
Yes.
But can we first kind of define domestic violence and who could possibly be in domestic violence situations? Can we kind of do that? So from your perspective, what is domestic violence like?
Well, domestic violence is defined in, well, I would say from a religious perspective, and just in a natural perspective. It's abuse that's been given to one, whether by bullying, verbal, or physical. Can go from a child to a child, an adult to a child, adult to a child, teenage to an adult, or to a senior. Being a chaplain one time, we saw a lot of that domestic elderly abuse. So those are things that really happen.
Yeah.
And then the church, there's that part of the church can be a part of the abuse as well, but not being an advocate for people to be liberated from it.
Right. So I think what we are doing here at this point is recognizing who can be considered or classified as being in domestic violence. And you're saying it can be basically husband to wife, wife to husband. It can be husband or parents to children. It could be children to parents. It could and be that adult or children, you know, because some parents are elderly and they have adult children caring for them, but they're being abused by their adult children in the care of them at their age. And so that's another form of domestic violence. And it's emotional, mental, or physical abuse. And some people feel like because they're not physically touching you, that they're not committing some type of abuse. And you and I both know that words hurt. We say that little saying, sticks and stones break my bones, but words never harm me. It's a lie. We know words harm and hurt. Words can form and formulate a child in an abusive situation. And so emotionally, mentally, and physically, if a person is being, let's say, touched, hit, struck by someone, and or hit with an object or something like that, that's abuse. If you are, and some people don't think this, but cussing at someone and belittling them in that way is a form of abuse.
Yes, And all of that, you got to think about. We had a situation when I was a chaplain. The son that was taking care of the mother for years, facing end-of-life care. We come to discover that she was being abused because we would see marks on her body, throughout the period. Unexplainable marks. And what it boils down to, she was trying to tell her, but no one was listening. The son was ignored, even though it was reported. But nevertheless, kind of found that the son was actually physically abusing his mother, to the point that he's now incarcerated for the time he was abusing her, because she was able to tell the advocate what happened.
Right. Was he just like physically hitting her only, or was there sexual abuse as well?
Well, my saying was both. At
Probably.
one point, we know probably both, but we know this was happening. Like he may grab her arm, hold it real tight, and you have a certain
bruising.
it's called bruising, especially if you're Caucasian or light-skinned person. And then she would show terror in her eyes when the caregiver or the nurse, CNA would come by, or the chaplain. In fact, he stopped allowing the chaplain to come because that would give her time to talk. So he prevented that. So those are signs that leads up to understanding that domestic violence not only is it a physical thing, but it's a taunting.
Right.
It's a threat. It's a look a person can give a person.
Right.
So when you're visiting people in that perspective, you're looking at all the areas of the signs that make it be.
Right. Domestic violence is that it's a mental abuse where a person is tormented.
Yes.
By threats or threats of harm to them, or sometimes even threats of withholding finances, food, your basic needs.
Yes.
So it comes in multiple forms, and I think that is the purpose of this first show, is to show the different areas of domestic violence and how broad and how wide it can spread, and for people to be able to maybe find themselves where they may fit in that, if this pertains to them. And if it does, then this is an opportunity for them to see themselves and maybe seek the help that they can get, or if you see this in someone else's life, to possibly help them to get out of the situation and get the help that they need.
I think one of the biggest problems is there's a lack of understanding. It's okay to tell.
It is.
That person needs help.
Right.
The abuser as well, the person has been abused. Because why is the abuser doing what he does or she's doing? Because abuse is not just from a man to a woman. Women have now been discovered that they do the same thing to their husband that may be as
intimidating, or also to physically. That, we have men who are physically abused by a female, and most men won't come forward with that because it emasculates them, or they feel like it makes them look less than a man to know that a woman is doing this to them. And so they stay in a hidden place and suffer pretty much in silence.
Suffers in silence.
Yeah. The other thing I was going to say when you were talking about the different abuse with the son possibly, but we say physical, but we didn't allude to the fact that it's not just hitting. But there's sexual abuse in domestic violence. And this happens across the board with spouses. People don't believe that you can violate your spouse sexually. But you and I both know that every person has a right to the word no.
Yes.
And even if you're married, and I'll say this to the camera, even if you're married, it doesn't give you rights to another person's body. A person has a right to say no, and at any time. Now, you can be mad, but you don't have a right to take from them what they're not freely offering. And if you do, it's called rape. And for so many years, it wasn't even against the law for a husband to rape a wife. And so in our years later, it did get to be that place where it was considered rape. A husband can't rape a wife just because they're married.
And I think that's because people are narrow-minded, a tunnel vision coming out of that. How can a man rape his wife? How can a man rape his girlfriend? They're in a relationship easily. If she says no, if he says no, and they force themselves on that person, or say that they're married but they're separated. Right. He comes to the house and he takes her. Well, that's rape. It's rape. Anytime there's a violation of the no rights, that is defined as rape.
That is a good violation of the no rights. Every person has a right to say no.
Yes.
And when you cross the line of that person's no, you're in violation. And a marriage certificate does not nullify the no right.
That's true.
Yes. So I wanted to reiterate that the physical violence is not just hitting, but it can also be sexual abuse, and the sexual abuse can also go toward children.
And it would be right to say most abuse starts verbal, because if that person can break your spirit to the point where you don't have a defense mechanism in you, that's when it goes to the physical.
Right.
And he's being a pastor and dealing with this matter on so many ongoing basis.
Right.
You try to inform the person to take the way of escape.
Right.
And I know you're going to bring up the scripture relates to them staying or going.
Right.
If you're in an abuse relationship, physically or emotionally or spiritually, the best way to be delivered is to take the escape route.
Right.
It's like it's the sound of the door. If you don't open the door, you can't go out.
Right.
If you stay in, talking about you're going to endure the hurricane, you're going to endure the fire, it's burning. You got to get out. And,
Right.
And when a person is abusive, the only help for them is to get out.
Well, speaking from experience, and I've told my story very candidly and with transparency, the abuser is their main thing is to get you isolated. They want you to feel as though you have no other option, that you must endure, that you got to stay in that position. And so that's why, when you're in a domestic violence situation, they alienate you. They try to isolate you from family, friends, some people, even their careers, working. Like you can't even get a job. You have to stay in the home and just be isolated by yourself.
Prison within your own home.
Prison within your own home. And that is because they don't want it to get out what they're doing to you. And they want you, it's a form of diminishing you and lowering your self-esteem and lowering who you are, because, and the thing about an abuser is that they will tell you they love you and use their anger or whatever tactic they're using to crush you, and turn around and blame you as the reason why they're having to respond to you in this way.
As far as gifting you in
Right.
their erratic behavior.
Right. They'll say it's your fault, the reason why they're acting the way they're acting, and then they'll say that you have to make some changes in what you're doing in order for them not to act that way.
Because they refuse to have ownership.
Right.
Or they're giving excuses.
Right.
If you give an excuse, which is a polished lie,
Right.
from the fact that you know what you're doing is wrong.
Right.
Because something happened to you doesn't mean you're supposed to have that happen to someone else. The goal is what happened to you, you shouldn't want to be done to
Right.
someone else because you got the experience. And anything you give an alibi and justification is going to continue to go on.
That's the truth. If you give bad behavior an alibi, it will continue. You have to call a spade, a diamond a dime. You have to call it like it is. I believe bad behavior needs to be called what it is. This is not good.
Yeah.
But let a person know change can happen, but you can't just justify your behavior. You can't say, well, I get out of control when you eat a yellow popsicle. And so now I have to not eat yellow popsicles for you to act in compliance or be a person that won't strike me. It's not for me to make a change. It's for you to get control over your emotions and now make a change in your life. But the abuser will always deflect.
Yeah.
It's always everyone else's fault and everybody else's problem, the reason why they're acting the way that they're acting. Now, I've noticed that with my situations of domestic violence, it was always because the kids were doing something, I was doing something, or whatever. It was never because I'm hot-tempered or I got a problem. It was never because I need to make a change in my life. It was always someone else. It's my mother, my father, my sister. It was always somebody else, the person at the job, this, that, and the third. It's always someone else's fault or reason why I need to act the way I act because they did this.
Please clarify, it wasn't me.
It was not this wonderful man that I am married to here. But this is not, this is the thing. It wasn't just my first husband that I experienced domestic violence with.
Okay.
We had domestic violence with as children,
Among
so
siblings, okay.
among siblings, and so it's not just isolated to husband and wife. And I think that's why I wanted to do this show, because when we say domestic violence, we always think man beating woman.
Yeah. And please understand that domestic violence abuser is about control.
It is.
He or she wants to control you.
Right.
Because they're not control. They're out of control.
Out of
so they want to control you.
Right.
Out of their own out of control
Behavior.
inability.
Right.
So what you have to understand from a biblical perspective, a biblical knowledge, it's not God's will that you or her abide in that relationship
Right.
under the circumstance of being abusive, because it become inherited, because the son sees that done to his mom.
Right.
He thinks that's the norm. The
That's
daughter see that
norm,
being
right.
done to the mom.
Right.
She thinks that's the way it's
A
supposed
man's
to be.
supposed to treat me.
Because he loves it. And the
Right.
truth is, he doesn't look at the abuser. Always come back.
Right.
You know I love you.
And this is how we develop the generational curse,
Yes.
because the behavior is taught to our children that this is what
The
family is. This is the norm.
Yes.
So if whoever's being abused learns this is how I'm supposed to accept it, and the abuser learns, or the other child, the male child or whatever, depending on which way the abuse is going, learns this is how I'm supposed to respond.
Mm-hmm.
This is how I'm supposed to act toward my spouse. And then they grow up, they find a woman that they can dominate.
Mm-hmm.
She finds a man that will treat her as such, in this case, in an abusive way.
Yeah.
And then they teach the next generation.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is the norm. And so you got generation after generation after generation of abuse. And I know that to be so, because from my grandmother to my mother to me to my daughter, this has been the truth.
Okay.
We saw it, we were raised in it, we were raised around it, and this is how we saw. The men hit their women,
Okay.
they yelled and cussed their children, they over-disciplined their children, and most of the women were fearful of their mates or their male.
But the abuser feeds off the fear.
He does.
It's like a pit bulldog. He's not going to bite you unless he feels you're fearful.
Right.
The enemy does that. He comes as a roaring lion, secretly may devour. We see the lion.
That's true.
But he doesn't realize he don't have any teeth.
Right.
But we look at he got claws. So either
Right.
way, it's always going to be something in that arena of the abuse that we find ourselves justifying the person doing it. You
Right.
cannot give the abuser power by staying with him. You have, or her. You have to escape.
And
That's
this,
the only way out.
and this is the thing. The abuser gives you the impression that you will be in more trouble leaving than you will staying.
Yes.
And so you learn, and I'm talking back from history, you learn how to survive in domestic situations. You're not really living, you're just learning how to not push the button of your abuser.
Yeah.
When in actuality, it doesn't take anything, because when he's angry, he wants to offload, and so therefore he will find something. It could just be this paper on the floor, and because I'm feeling some kind of way,
Yeah.
I'll come in and say, look at that paper on the floor. Well, yesterday it wasn't a problem, but today, because I'm feeling some kind of way, it's a problem, and so this is my avenue to now explode the way I want to explode.
In order to get into the streets.
In order to, and not only that, but just to offload this anger that I'm feeling. They find a reason to explode, and it's really just bullying, so to speak. You know, and 9 times out of 10, abusers at home, a lot of times they are not that way toward people in the public.
I guess I knew a young lady years ago. In fact, I had dated her, and her statement to me one time in the process of the dating was that if I hit her, she would be okay, because that proves to her that I loved her.
Wow.
And I'm like, wow, I said, that's not going to happen. That's not my type of
Yeah, that's strange.
behavior. If that's going to be the case, I need to not be here. But nevertheless, you find yourself realizing that was something going on that she saw in her mother or sister or sibling that she classifies as being a norm. To have a nice guy wasn't good.
Right.
You need a guy that was, aggressive towards you.
Right.
Never understood that.
Well, even to this day, that is still For some reason, we women think that an aggressive man is a protective man, and that is not true.
Far from the truth.
Yeah, we think that if he's not aggressive, you know, like if he'll rough me up, then somebody else won't be able to do that to me. He'll take care of them. But this is actually, to me, a way for you to judge whether or not you need to get with a guy or whatever, or a female, is that if he is aggressive in situations where he should be able to articulate a problem and be, I say, humane about it, and he explodes on another person for, I call, minimum offense, guarantee he will do that to you.
Yes. You know, I was watching on Facebook, it's ironic that you asked me on your show, this husband, well, the boyfriend and girlfriend, I don't know whether they're married or not. Anyway, yes, all I know that she was taking a lie detector test to prove her innocent of being violation, unfaithful.
Okay.
Well, she started talking real harsh toward the guy that did the test,
Okay.
and to her boyfriend, husband at the same time, trying to deflect. Well, the test came back. She was not only messing around, but she was messing with his friend.
Wow.
And they exposed her, but all the time she started raising her voice, cussing them out, fussing. I tell you, ready to go. I'm ready to go. Anytime someone tries to intimidate you in their own wrongful living, that is one tail sign to get up out of there.
Right.
It doesn't change. The normal person that's abusive, they don't change their behavior toward that person. Always they get delivered, you have to let them go.
Right. And I say that you can't be good enough or nice enough to a person who is dealing with being an abuser or one who operates under domestic violence. You can't be good enough. They will always find a reason to be mad about, so that they can, like I said, offload. That their whole purpose is to get that feeling of dominion, or to have that powering over. And most of the time it's because out there in the world, they don't have it.
They go to their job and be just as good, and everybody think he's a great guy.
Right.
Come home, he's physically abusing his spouse.
Right.
Or her.
I'm gonna go this far to say too, because this is how I feel about cussing. Okay. I think cussing is barbaric.
Yes.
And I think cussing is what they say. It is a inability to articulate what you need to say without reverting to being a barbaric or being barbaric. And to me, if something bothers you, you should be able to articulate to me what bothers you without resorting to cussing. Because cussing now is to me, that bottom level of right above the animals. You know, animals bite you when they get intimidated or scared or something. They bite. And I think cussing is right above that. You know, because now you resorting to, I think, animalistic type things, which is to bite somebody, as opposed to coming up with a solution to what's really going on or what the problem may be. And so to me, I think that's why I don't really get down with the cussing thing, because of that reason. It's degrading. It's meant to break you. It's meant to make you feel less than. And I'm especially, it's distasteful to me when I see adults cussing at children. Yeah. I don't know how we have gone so long and not addressed when parents cuss out their children, but it's barbaric, it's abusive, and
you break their spirit.
It breaks their spirit. I mean, then you want them to come home with a A and a B, after you don't call them everything but a child of God. You expect them to feel good about themselves enough to go and now listen to a teacher when in the back of their mind, all they hear is what you called them out of their name. Yes. Or call, their mother or father out of their name in the back of your mind. That's all you hear is the drama. But in the meantime, this child is supposed to focus and bring home an A and a B, when in the back of their mind, they think they are a no good, this, that, and another.
They're not worried, they're not bad.
Right. Yeah. You no good, you this, you
Jess?
Oh my
I have not seen you.
So long, and you're my
I
neighbor,
know, I know.
Oh, congrats on the baby.
Thank you so much.
Okay, you need to join us for dinner.
Definitely.
Yeah,
I
we
would
should
love
totally
to.
do that. Sorry, I gotta put this down.
Hey. We should go to Jess's. I haven't seen him in a while.
Jess or Mark?
What are you talking about?
Are you seriously gonna deny it? I've seen you two.
What? You're being ridiculous.
You're my wife! Okay? You got that? Don't forget it. Look, we just need to spend more time together. All right, just plan another night. All right? Good.
I'll be back later.
Oh, where are you going?
Jess and I are going to get our nails.
No, not tonight, honey.
I already told Jess that I'm on my way, so.
I know, but it's been a long week. We've hardly seen each other.
No, we've been planning this for months,
I
and
know,
I
but
already
look,
told you,
look,
so I'm.
let's have dinner together.
No,
We
we've been
haven't-
planning this for months, and I already told
I
you that
said
I'm not.
no.
Well, I said yes. I said
Listen,
that I'm
look at
going.
this house.
Look at
You
this.
haven't done anything
Yeah,
with it.
I
Have
haven't
you
done
not
anything.
done
You haven't done anything.
Are you kidding me? I've been at work all
I'm not
week.
kidding you.
What
I
you
don't
been
care.
doing?
I don't care. When was the last time you did?
Are you
I
kidding
am
me?
not asking for your permission. I'm going.
You brought this on yourself. What kind of mother are you gonna be if you're this lazy?
Stop.
You're disrespectful. You're lazy. You brought this on yourself. You're pathetic. Just listen to what I say. Isn't that hard?
I'm worried about you. Do you feel safe? I know the number for a local shelter. Do you want to come over and we can call?